Hello, my name is Briana and I am doing my presentation on the marvelous Frank Gehry. Frank Gehry was born in 1929 in Toronto. His family moved to California in 1947, and he went to the University of Southern California's College of Architecture in 1949. And in 1954, he changed his last name from Goldberg to Gehry after his wife asked him to. She thought it would help him in his professional career. He worked in different studios from 1957 to 1961, and opened his own studio in Santa Monica in 1962. He was commissioned to build many structures between the dates of 1965 and 1984. He held the Elliott Nose Chair at Harvard from 1892 to 1894, and he won the Pritzker Architecture Prize from the Hyatt Foundation in 1989. This is a very highly prestigious award, and it was very difficult for him to earn, so it was a major career point. And he built the Guggenheim Bilbao in 1997. This became a huge part of Gehry's career, and it was a staple. We'll learn about it later. And since then, he's continued to make incredible structures, and he is considered one of the most relevant and influential architects in the world. Frank Gehry's design process is a bit experimental. He sticks to a basic structure though. He begins with very gestural type of sketching. He then refines the sketch, and when he slows down and begins to study the research that he has sketched, he also researches materials, styles, and engineering. After all the research is done, he uses CAD-type programs to create mock-ups of sketches and research. After the mock-ups are complete, then he starts to build the models out of wood. And these models are not small, but they are scaled down. After all of this is complete, with his commissioner's approval, of course, then construction can begin. These are basic staples of his design process, but Gehry experiments with his process all the time and in different ways. He also has a lot of inspirations, which we're going to talk about next. So Gehry's style has been described as deconstructivism. He views the architecture around us as box-like structures. Gehry breaks the boxes down into pieces and reassembles them in new forms and challenges the sense of order. This is translated into his personal language, and through this he relates to all arts and humanity in the worldview. You can read the rest of this if you pause the video. But Gehry does see architecture as an art, and his inspirations mainly come from people. He loves to see people interact with life itself and the chaos of life. He also likes to study the relationships he has with friends that are famous, and his relationship with fame itself. He's also incredibly motivated and inspired by movement, which you'll see a lot of in his pieces. And he dives into the feelings and emotions that he wants to inspire through his structures. That's a huge part of his buildings. He doesn't really want anything to be just faceless. Everything has to have a face. It's more human that way, and that's what he brings to architecture. So these are some of Gehry's iconic structures, and this picture is from the Museum of Pop Culture up in Seattle, which we'll learn a bit about later. So this is the Virtua Design Museum. It was built in 1989, and it was his first installation in Europe. It has a signature curved forms and his juxtaposed angular forms. And it was inspired by the furniture manufacturers' furniture. They made a lot of it. And this is at their campus. This is the Cheat Day Complex. It was built in 1991 in Venice, California. It was originally built for the advertising complex, and he collaborated with a couple different artists in the area. It was nicknamed the Binoculars Building, and you can see that right around there. The rest of the building has been described as a cross between a ship's prow and a forest of tree trunks, which you can see right here, and is currently used by Google. Google has commissioned him for other buildings. This is the Dancing House, built in 1996 in Prague, in the Czech Republic. The building was highly controversial when it was built because in that area of Prague, it is dominated by Gothic, Baroque, and Art Nouveau style architecture. He collaborated with another local artist on this project, and it was fashioned after Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, the famous dancing couple. It was described as New Baroque. It is made of 99 concrete panels, and the building also has a huge metal structure on top of it, which you can see right here, called the Medusa. This is the Guggenheim Bilbao. we talked about it a bit earlier, but it was built in 1997 in Bilbao, Spain. He insisted that it would be made of metal because the town used to be called Steel Town. It was made of titanium, and Gehry loved the buttery aesthetic, and it is incredibly resistant to rust, which is important for this area. He was asked to design something innovative and daring, and it became an architectural landmark, and it responded to its urban surroundings. And it kickstarted a revival of their surrounding city, which influenced the style of the city aesthetic. You can see this a lot in other pictures if you'd like to look them up, but I kept it to this structure for this project. This is the Museum of Pop Culture, which we also talked about a bit earlier. It was built in 2000, and I've actually been to this museum. It's so cool inside. It's built in Seattle, and he pretty much cut a bunch of electric guitars up and studied the shapes that he made. It has 21,000 shingles. It's made of stainless steel and aluminum and has 280 ribs. And it holds a lot of different cultural events each year. And the locals like to call it the Blob. It has lots of colors, and it's very, very shiny. And Hubert Muskamp, a critic, described it as something that crawled out of the sea, rolled over, and died. New York by Gehry. That's the actual title of the piece. It was built in 2011 in New York City, and it was inspired by the financial district. It's Gehry's first residential building that's 76 stories tall, which is 870 feet. Sorry about that. It became the world's tallest residential building in the Western Hemisphere, and it's draped like shiny fabric. This is the Peter B. Lewis building, built in 2002 in Cleveland, Ohio. It was made by the CEO Progressive Insurance, and it is 152,000 square feet. It embodies Gehry's signature style and has ribbons of stainless steel flowing through a concrete base, designed to have an open interior and meant to foster civilization and socialization with all the departments. This is the Walt Disney Concert Hall, one of his most famous pieces, in Los Angeles, California, built in 2003. It was made for the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and it reflects his passion for sailing. It's meant to convey those wafting sails in the breeze. It's so cool. And he collaborated with expert acousticians, and it received amazing reviews for its acoustics. The outside is made of curving stainless steel, but the inside is just filled with light. And the Rose Garden is dedicated to Lily Rose. All right, this is the last piece. This is the Louis Vuitton Foundation, built in 2014 in Paris, France. It holds modern and contemporary art. It has dynamic forms just like a fish. That was one of its inspirations. And it responds to jardin d'acclimation, like traditional 19th century glass gardening, made of white blocks and reinforced concrete. 12 glass sails and wooden beams. Transparency, and it evokes a lot of movement. There's just a lot. You can see that through all the design, especially right here. It is always changing with the light, and it has amazing views of the garden around it. So Gehry is still designing even now at 92 years old. He didn't really hit it big till he was 50, and he doesn't think he'll stop, and he has no idea how to stop working. He still is trying to change the world around him with each of his structures. He is constantly talking about how his famous friends and relations with them still influence his works, and he's looking forward to what the future brings and will most likely work until the day he dies. Thank you for listening, and this is my presentation on Frank Gehry. Here is my works cited if you'd like to look at them. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day.